Welcome. My guest today is Mr. Frank Healy, who is the author of numerous books and also the website Phenomenal Memory. You can't wait to hear this story. Frank remembers everything that ever happened in his life. Well, almost. Welcome to the show, Frank. And tell me, you remember from everything from when you were about 6 years old, right?
Yes, it will be. I was almost six. The end of this month will be 50 years since I remember every day of my life. I'll be
Wow.
56 in May. So it started when I was homesick from kindergarten for a week in 1966, too sick to even be up playing with toys. And it just happened that my uncle down the street had given me a calendar for that year, 1966. So with little else to do or nothing else to do, I stared at it all week, and in each block of a date, I pictured what would be on primetime TV that night, and then played the coming on song on my head, so that by the end of the week, I knew what day of the week every day of that year was going to be on.
Wow. That's fairly ambitious for a not even 6 year old. It just like it must have just come naturally because I don't think it would ever occur to me to do that.
Well, yes, I for years I thought, even when I wrote my first book in 2007, Living with a Phenomenal Memory, I thought it was all that I worked on it. But, on Wednesday, February 9th, 2011, when I was tested at the University of California in Irvine, I was number 12. They've now tested upwards of 60 people and found them. And
Wow.
they did a CAT scan or MRI and found out that parts of our frontal lobes are of the brain are almost twice the size of most people's. So it was natural to take in everything and make notes of what date everything happened on. So I not only know the calendar, now back to 1752, but I remember weather, personal and news events every day for the past 50 years.
That's amazing. It's amazing. And you've written extensively about your own personal experience, but here's what I find really interesting. You have this memory that is a unique gift, but you've also found a way to help other people increase their memories, even if we weren't born with a gift. We all have some ability to learn how to keep our memories as we age, right? So give me some tips. I know you have a few tips. Give me a tip on what you would tell those of us who are over 50 to help with keeping our memory intact.
Okay, well, in my latest two books, Heal Your Memories, Change Your Life, and also my latest, The Ultimate Guide to Healing Your Past, I have some exercises and I'll give you some basic ideas of what they're about. Like if you recall a memory like of a vacation or some good time that you have, and you think about it and then feel the feelings long enough, it's likely that more memories of a similar nature will pop into your head. For
Okay,
instance,
let me try it. I want to try it.
okay.
All right. So I'm thinking of one of my very favorite vacations ever was in Costa Rica, and we were on the beach, and I just remember feeling so great there, right? So I can remember
Right.
the feeling, but I'm not actually feeling the feeling. I just am mentally remembering the feeling.
Okay, well, if you mentally remember the feeling, maybe take a minute or so and you'll be able to get the feeling and maybe more facts about that vacation. More memories will pop into your head because the brain's geared toward that way when you're really letting yourself feel the feeling and imagine you're there.
Nice. Okay, so I'll work on that tonight. And then when I go into that, will memories just come flooding back, or should I keep working on that?
Well, sometimes they flood back pretty quickly. Other times it's slower, but like with that, you're likely to first more memories of that particular vacation, like maybe where a monkey jumped out of a tree or something.
Hmm.
You'll remember that, and then maybe if you do it long enough, it might even expand into some good memories of other vacations you had. So
Interesting.
once the brain is stuck on a subject, it's like it'll reach in and recall as many things that have to do with that same subject. So whether it's vacations, fun on a date, and or fun with friends and a fun holiday sometime, more memories will flood back.
Yeah. Now, we're going to talk about what happens if it triggers not so fun memories, right? I want to talk about that in a minute. But before we go there, let's go to the other piece that people over 50 often have, which is, dang, I can't remember where I put my keys. I know I just had them, right? Where are they? And it seems like those kinds of things just slip through the cracks more easily now.
Yes, well, over 50, a lot of times when you practice, you can be as good and avoid the expression senior moment. It's kind of like if you picture something, when you put your keys down, picture something bizarre that has to do with where you put them down. For instance, like if you put them in a particular drawer, imagine 1,000 little keys trying to screw their way out of the wood from that drawer with no one holding them. It just, because it has to be something in your imagination. Otherwise the memory won't stick. It'll be too plain and pedestrian. So if you remember something that's too bizarre to happen in real life.
Mm-hmm. So you can train your memory to remember. So I get that. So if I am in a new person's house, so I'm out of my habit, I can train my memory to okay, I'm putting my keys here. It's a new house. They're going here in the drawer, keys boring holes through the drawer. What if I just don't remember where I put them? Like I picked them up and dropped them some bizarre place in my house because I was distracted for a moment. Is there a way to recall that?
Well, if you think, just spend a few minutes thinking about everywhere you were. That's not too hard. And then by doing that, you might recall maybe hearing a sound where they fell out and went behind the couch or something when you were getting up or sitting down. Or if that doesn't happen, then you could just retrace where you've been. And, one thing that can make that happen, not only to over 50, but to anybody, is every time you walk into a new setting, whether it's outside or inside or a different room in the house, your whole mental structure changes. And so, you might, when you're in a different room, think of looking for your keys. But when you get there, your whole mental set has changed from when you were in the other room. So that's why you can think, oh, what am I here after? I forgot what I was looking for, because your mindset changes. And the best thing to do is keep focusing on the keys or on the item you're looking for as you go from room to room. Consciously keep it in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good advice. Now you've got a boatload of books. I was been researching them and looking through them all. They're all on Amazon.com. And you also have a website, phenomenalmemory.com. And I just want to take a minute because I know you work with other people who either need to increase their memory or want to remember more things, right? But
Right.
You also help people heal memories. And I think this is so important. So we all hear about, all the memories came flooding back. And then sometimes that's good and sometimes that's not so good. So what do you do with people to heal memories?
Well, a lot of times, most people don't have what I have, but most people do remember events in their lives that had a high emotional impact, whether for better or for worse. Maybe a time when they were a kid and were running on cement and then fell and got hurt, or a painful breakup on a vacation, or in one of their favorite spots near home that they loved hanging out until that night. And so a lot of times, I do some exercises in Heal Your Memories, Change Your Life. My third book, I guide you through where you can take two memories, one happy and one unhappy memory, and you get into a meditative state, and then you go back and forth between the happy memory, which you spend more time thinking and feeling about, and then for shorter amounts of time, go to the negative memory. And by the end of it, you'll have flooded out those negative feelings so that when you think about the negative memory, if it pops up, the emotional charge just isn't there anymore. So you've healed.
And that seems actually quite simple. Is it simple, or is it emotional to go through the process?
Well, I found I've done this with clients I counsel and what I coach, and I even did it on a radio show one time, December 11th, 2013, and it was a Wednesday. And I remember telling, getting some feedback from, and it's always been pretty positive, the feedback. The best people do is let it go, and the worst that's ever happened with that is that they still feel a little bit emotional impact. So simple solution to that, repeat the exercise to get rid of more of it.
Wow.
And
can you just make yourself happy all the time using this technique?
I think you can now, whenever you choose to. Now, somebody might say, yeah, it would be pretty hard to be happy when you just found a beloved friend or relative or your spouse died, but most of the time, but it is possible. But even if you're just having a bad day at work, or you're frustrated driving in the ice and snow or stuff, you can choose these choose to let go of the feelings. And these exercises with your memories can also have a ripple effect of helping you to let go of negative feelings you're having right with your present experience. So it's a lot they can do to help you.
Yeah, nice. So how long does the process take when you work with someone? Is it like, if I'm signing up with you, I presume it's not like 3 years or anything. So tell me what a typical process might look like.
Well, I've developed a coaching program that I'm working on putting up. In fact, you can download it and get information on my website now.
Phenomenalhealing.com. I'll just tell people. And it'll be in the show notes too, so people can click over.
Okay, good.
But I want to make sure people can get there easily.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Yeah, it's 6 sessions where I go through all things memory in 6 sessions. There's 1 or 2 sessions on improving your memory, as we talked about, couple of other sessions on letting go of negative feelings from bad memories while still maintaining the good feelings from good memories, a session on learning from your memories, which is what my latest book, The Ultimate Guide to Healing Your Past, is about. And the final session is entitled Your Request, like anything in particular that the client personally wants to work on with memory, we'll do in the 6 sessions. So you do a coaching session a week with me. You could complete it in 6 weeks and not 6 years.
Nice. Because that actually sounds pretty doable. I think a lot of us feel like, oh, we've worked on our stuff, right? We've gotten to this age and we've worked on our stuff and we just want it to be gone already. It's like we live in the world of instant results.
Oh, yes.
So 6 weeks actually doesn't sound difficult.
Right? No, and if you really do it well, you'll see some progress each week. So that could be some instant gratification and could be the juice that keeps you going for the remaining weeks. So
tell me, I'm really interested about these studies that were done on your frontal lobe, I guess, in California. Tell me how that happened. Did you, how did they know to contact you? I know you've been on radio and TV around the world, I think, at least the US. Yes, I know.
I've been on an Australian talk show, Sunrise. I've been on Canadian shows, English shows. So have been all around the world. And what started when, like, I had written my book, published my book, Living with a Phenomenal Memory, in 2007. October 16th, Tuesday, was the release date. Then on Friday, May 9th, 2008, 2020 had a special on about the first person they had studied at the university, Jill Price. So then at the end of that show, they said, if you think you have that kind of a memory, write to this address, this lab. Wow. And so I sent them a copy of my book along with a letter detailing a quick reference to what I can do. And then it entailed 4 different phone tests where they would schedule a time and they'd call me and they'd ask me questions in one of 2 formats. One was they'd throw out a date and I would say what the day of the week and what historical event happened on that date. For instance, March 24th, 1989. That was a Friday, and that was the day of the Exxon Valdez oil spill in
Oh,
Alaska.
wow. Wow.
Or they'd say an event such as, when did the Queen Mother in England die at 101? Oh, yeah, Saturday, March 30th, 2002, and it was of pneumonia. So I know these events, a lot of news events aren't particularly the happiest, but they were impressed that I knew, so I got about 85% right on all those tests. Things like events that maybe I hadn't followed were the few ones I didn't get. So that was enough for them to invite me over to be tested all day. And
Wow.
they ran me through a battery of tests, and occasionally asking me if I was getting tired, but I never was, because I love talking about it. And and then at the last thing they did that day was the brain scan.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
and then the chief researcher included images of, well, I was the last one, the 12 of us with our brain scans and things they found out that they learned from doing that with us. And there's been many other tests they've done since then. They collected spit samples from relatives and see if there's anything genetic about it.
Wow. Now, what are they going to do with all these results? Are they hoping to help those of us with regular memory? Are they looking to see if it's genetic? What is the purpose of the test?
Well, the purposes really seem to me unlimited. Part of what they're thinking of doing is maybe helping people with Alzheimer's, if they could understand our genes and stuff. And, and there can be big implications for education, learning new ways of thinking that maybe for some students might be able to teach them the ways. So there's a lot that could be done.
Interesting. Nice. And actually, you've got a great photo. If I can just brag on you a little bit, you got a great photo. Is it with Mary Lou Henner?
Yeah, she was number 5 or 6 that they studied there. Those of you who remember the sitcom Taxi, she was Elaine Nardo, the sort of dippy taxi driver. And, so on Saturday, August 31st, 2013, I had lunch with Mary Lou and her gang in New Hope, Pennsylvania. Then we went to the Playhouse around the corner to see her live in a show there.
Nice, nice. Yeah, back when the days when TV was a lot more happy-go-lucky and the bad stuff that happened wasn't life-threatening. Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. So, and that was a couple of years, 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
3 years ago. And now they've since
I was tested 5 years ago. Sorry.
5 years ago. Okay. And so do you know, have the people born with this ability, has it increased or decreased over the years, or do they not know because they've just started researching?
Well, they've just started researching now. I understand that there's a British university that they've found about 5 people who have this. But I know when they were looking for us, they told me they had phone tested over 1,000 people. And then, so I thought that's pretty good, 12 out of 1,000. It's a pretty rare condition. And there's been many theories that came out since then. In the fall of 2013, there was some articles written on that maybe we're just bad at forgetting. Like, most people forget their everyday stuff pretty well, and they might still remember their wedding date or when their kids were born and significant events in their lives. But to us, every single day of our lives is a big event that we remember. And
that is sort of what I guess all the spiritual teachers say too, treat every day as though it were a big event, right? Maybe
That's
not
right.
Those words, but it sounds so glorious. It sounds very enlightened to be able to remember the days, heal the bad memories, remember more details of the things you want to remember, like your vacations, right? It just seems like a really healthy lifestyle.
Well, it can be. I've made it into a healthy lifestyle because I think the reason I got interested in studying psychology and being a therapist and a coach is that, teaching myself first and then learning how to get rid of the negative feelings and the positive, but keep the positives. And there were times when I was so into memorizing and thinking about the past that it seemed almost like a mystical spiritual experience. I'm very much into that too.
Wow.
So
Do memories still come up? Are you still remembering new things, or have you remembered everything there is to remember about your life?
well, I'd say that it happens rarely, but sometimes something will pop in my head and it'll be like, oh, I didn't forget this. I just hadn't thought about it in years.
Hmm.
So something will pop up, but then I'm like, oh yeah, this happened on this date. So to me, that means that I haven't forgotten it. I just haven't retrieved it in a while.
Hmm. I think that's a really interesting distinction about retrieval, because some of us choose to retrieve different pieces of the same experience. So I'll go to dinner with my husband and I might remember in detail the people next door at the table next door to us, and he didn't even notice them at all. And he might remember something more detailed about the waiter or the food. And so it's not that I haven't remembered the food, I didn't even focus on it maybe as
Well, that's
much.
real. Well, that's really what a lot of what people think they forgot something. What it really is that they didn't remember it in the first place. They were mindful of something else and not that. And
Right.
that's why a lot of people say they're bad at remembering names, even if they remember other things, because when you're introduced to somebody, most people are thinking about, does my collar look right? Or am I speaking right? What am I doing with my hands? Then when the person says their name, they didn't catch it. So they didn't remember it in the first place.
And this goes back to your spiritual practice that you were talking about that you're interested in. It really is a mindfulness practice.
Oh, yes, it's very being mindful. Like the example you just gave, Michelle, where you and your husband go out to eat, you're mindful of one thing, he's mindful of something else. And
Mhm.
so it doesn't have anything to do with really, that itself doesn't have anything to do with how intelligent or how good your memory is. It's just what you focused on. So it's like even when my wife and I do something, she'll remember she'll remember details about things like what we ate and different stuff, and I'll remember what date it was, who was there, and I'll remember the conversations and the topics and things. So it's we're a good pair because our minds are so different, yet we have a lot of similar values and life goals. So it's a perfect marriage, as perfect as you can get in a marriage.
Right, sure. And then, of course, if you're remembering different things between the two of you, you've remembered it all, or you've
That's right. That,
been mindful of it all, right?
that's right.
Yeah,
You know,
interesting. So really, we need to take someone with us to any important event that's going to remember and be mindful of different things than we might be mindful of. Is there a limit to how much we can remember? Like, there's that old joke, oh, my mind is just too full. I have to forget some things to learn some new ones. Is there
yeah,
any
well,
truth to that?
Now, I remember in high school at the lunch table one day, they already knew about my memory skills. So this guy says, well, okay, it was Tuesday, December 16th, 1975. He says, I think by the time Frank hits 40 or 50, he won't even be able to do 1+1 because his mind will be so full with memories and all. And I I thought, then I didn't know as much about memory, and the world didn't know as much about memory then. But there's really no limit. Like I never feel like my mind is full, especially when they say we only use about 3 to 10% of our brains now. So
There's
it's
a lot of
I
room in
think
there.
there is a lot of room, and the
Yeah.
brain. I mean, the brain tends to evolve physically a lot quicker than how we evolve how to use it. So,
I think for me, I would like to learn how to just learn languages faster, or memorize my itinerary and all those numbers and where I'm going, so I don't travel with like folders of things or have to flip through emails to find things, right? It seems like there should be some very practical ways to increase our capacity for memory. Do you have any tips around those kinds of things?
Well, I think I think the Socrates, if you know the expression in the first place, when Socrates made speeches, he would place some object that reminded him of a point in his speech in each room in the Parthenon, and then when in Greece, and then when he would make his speeches, he'd do a mental walkthrough to remember each thing. In fact, interestingly, Tuesday, June 23rd of last year, I gave a speech for a civic club and sold some books, and it was in the shore town my wife and I go to, and my mother-in-law lives, Stone Harbor, New Jersey. And I did a mental walkthrough down the main street and mentally placed different things, one at the miniature golf course, one in a restaurant, and one in the memorial park for the veterans. And so to get the key points of all the things I was going to cover, I did a Socratic walkthrough like that of the main street of the resort town. And that's something you can do is, people have done it, a walkthrough. You could do a walkthrough through your house and pick different points, to memorize different parts of your agenda. And, foreign languages is, a little trickier, but if you can make associations, like if a word sounds like something in English, make an association with that. So there's always ways to connect new information to old information that you already have.
I love that connection with like the rooms in my house, because I don't have to think about it. I can just instantly picture, I go from my entry to my kitchen to my living room, and then there's the bedrooms, right? I mean, I just know it. I don't have to struggle with that. So if I'm going to think about that next time I have to prepare about putting something in each room. I love that tip. I want to just share with you that when I did my TEDx talk a couple of years ago, I memorized it on the treadmill. I would walk on the treadmill and read it because it got it in my body, and I felt like it was anchoring it.
Well, that's a good point, because your body can be a good reference. Like if you're more of a kinesthetic type of person than a visual person, that's a good way to memorize something. And in fact, in my book that's only available on Kindle, but it's great, memory brain exercises.
Yes.
I have first I have a test to see what kind of learner are you, mostly visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. And then I have chapters for each type of learner. Like a lot of it has to do with, you could take the same thing, but learn it in a different way. In fact, here's an example of that. Suppose you just have met a fireman. His name is Peter Burns. He has red hair. His wife's name is Sherry, and he has two sons named Pat and Jake. So first you think, if you're a visual person, you'd look at his red hair and think fire, and then you'd imagine rabbit ears for Peter. And then you might imagine a lady walks up with a wine bottle, and it's to serve him something after he fought the fire, and it's a glass of sherry. You see the sherry label on the bottle? Picture that. Then two little boys walk up to him. One's carrying and petting a cat, and the other one has a snake around his neck. Use rhyming: Pat, cat, and Jake, snake. Now, that's if you're visual. If you're an auditory person, you learn mostly by what you hear. He would maybe you'd have him say his name, but you'd also notice the red hair, but have him say his name. And in fact, rote memorization, where you say it over and over again, works best for auditory people, musicians, good speakers, stuff. So now if you're a kinesthetic person, you might imagine see the fire in his hair, but imagine how hot it would feel standing right next to the fire, fighting it, and imagine how it feels, the glass against your lips of sherry, and imagine the taste of sherry. Well, that gets gustatory into it too, which can be useful too. And then you imagine what are the two boys coming up and think, oh, I'd like to be petting a cat, and maybe you'd be scared of a snake, or you might think it'd be fun to handle one, depending on, but notice the feel of it around your neck, and that's for a kinesthetic learner, where you learn mostly from your body. So,
interesting.
So part of being good at memory is having your own style.
Yeah, nice. And really knowing that you can do it, I think, is a big piece of it, not being afraid of it. And like I mentioned earlier, you can work with people in just 6 sessions to really help them heal memories and get better at memories and so forth. So we're going to wrap up here. I want to give your website out again, phenomenalmemory.com, phenomenalmemory.com. It'll be in the show notes. And you've got 6 books on Amazon. Well, you've got Kindle books. You've written a lot of things, and you have downloadable stuff on your website.
Yes, you could get my free monthly report on my website. A lot of my free newsletters are similar to what's in my books. I interviewed people who overcame bad memories and are now thriving and happy. So you can get that, and you can also sign up for the coaching that I was talking about. Get a free consult, and we'll talk about what you'd like to learn, and then we'll set up a payment plan, but the consult's free. And so a lot you can do, and you can order the books, any of the books, directly from Kindle or from Create Space. So, you have a lot of things you can do. The website, it's big, but we're still developing it, and going to dedicate it to all things memory.
I love that. That's so fantastic. You've been a fantastic guest on the show today, Frank. Leave us with one thing that you want all of our listeners and watchers to really know about memory. What's the one thing you want to leave us with today?
I'd say the one thing is that you all have a good memory. I can just help you develop it.
Thank you. I love that. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show today.
Yes, it's been a pleasure.